Kellyanne Scott was live in Stand Up X. Stand Up X Save Our Children UK. Live from Liverpool. This is a social worker. They call it care system.
Hello everyone, I'm Christy, and as we've heard today from the speakers already, there are absolute atrocities happening to our children. And I'm here today as an advocate for the children in care specifically. Yes, thank you. So as we know, the children in care are some of the most vulnerable children to the exploitation. So I've got links to the care system personally, so I'm going to try and show you what I see through my eyes. So I'm a foster assistant for two little boys. I've done therapy for work with children in care. I've worked with adults who actually had their children removed to the care system, and I've also done research within the care sector. I'm an advocate for children in care, and I am proud. One thing that you'll notice, I've come across professionals in the care system who know mountains for children. My criticisms don't lie with the individuals, they lie with the corporation, because as a government see the care system, the government see the care system as a business and it's disgusting. So I hope to highlight some of these issues in a wider sense. So for those of you who don't know the care system too well, every child in care should have a team of professionals around them because they are vulnerable to things like, as we know, trafficking and exploitation.
So, a mother and a father and a babysitter and relatives cannot be replaced by social workers. And this lady will tell you that so many kids are going missing and that they're more vulnerable in foster care. She just said it. And they need a team of people. And the government's paying, and they still can't protect kids. So they're lying to us that they take care of kids. It's basically false advertising, and businesses can be sued based on false advertising.
Looks after children, however, with this whole team of professionals around them, are 3 times more likely to go missing than any child out of the system. So you might be asking yourself, why should I care? Well, hopefully the right kinds of people are here, so let me answer that one for you. The government look at the care system through the eyes of a business. So I invite you to see the care system as a business, just for today. So the government is CEO of a multi-million-pound corporation.
Multi-million-pound corporation. Well, I think that the love of money has superseded law. Just like, qualified immunities has superseded the Constitution.
10,000 children go missing out of care every single year. So if you're a taxpayer, if you pay into that system, where is your money going? So I want to pamphlet this to you today. If you contribute to the tax system, you are investing in these children's futures. This is not your business.
Well, look at it this way. Wombs get abortions. Families get, kids taken from them. And that's population control. So they're taking our kids, 10,000 at a time. Well, out of Liverpool. I wonder how many in America. But 10,000 kids go missing a year out of Liverpool. And they've actually tracked it here, and she'll tell you the statistics about how many of them are actually being trafficked. Out of they have an audit system for the kids that they find, and it's like 10%. Ours is anywhere from 60 to 98% of kids being sexually trafficked in the system.
So like I say, in 2012, a government inquiry said that there were 10,000 children that have gone missing from care. And this was described as a scandal.
Just a scandal. a civil matter. Where you gotta sue how many people have qualified and absolute immunities based on all this? So basically, these corrupt courts that have the Supreme Court as the supreme law of the land, and the judicial decisions of judges that see us as property, making decisions of immunities and qualified immunities for other government officials that are just treating us like property.
2015, that number rose to 28,570 children. This data might have you thinking, surely that's not right. The police data show that it was 10,000 children, however, the government only reported 930. I'm not very good at maths, so I can do that one. So in 2017, obviously all the children who go missing are trafficked as far as we know. But in 2017, 1,015 children were identified as being trafficked in the care system.
The ones that they found.
A quarter of those in 2019 could not be traced. Where are children?
A quarter of what? Those that were found? The quarter of the ones that were trafficked, or a quarter of the total of lost children? I didn't get clarification on that.
Now, to put this into perspective for you, children in care are only 2% of the entire child population. So this is disproportionate for all of these missing children.
So, 2% of the population have a percentage going missing, which makes the level of harm in care disproportionate to the rest of the population. So, based on a ratio, you would have, oh my God, 10,000 a year going missing out of the 2% of the population, and 1%, 10% of that are being sex trafficked, and then the rest can't be traced. The ones that go missing out of the 10,000. So you can't find, 9,000 of those kids per year? So what's happening to the rest of those kids?
The numbers are absolutely shocking. So from personal experience now, I'm going to empower you all. Hopefully, we've given you some things to look out for. Some things that I've noticed which has helped me in my job so far advocating for the children. So physical appearance. Look at the
Physical appearance. I think that's deceptive, because I've heard social workers keep these girls looking really, really pretty and keep some of these kids really, really well groomed because they're sex trafficking them. So they make them look pretty, they keep them smelling good. And I've heard people testify that they've actually seen in the reports that there's emphasis placed on the appearance of these kids.
clothes, look at their shoes, do they fit? Are their clothes seasonally appropriate? In summer, have they got long sleeves, long pants, what's being covered up? Also,
My grandson was showing up filthy with really gross, like he hadn't been bathed in weeks. He looked frail and just sad and dejected, and his face looked, emotionless, and like he'd been taught to pray Catholic method, doing different symbols that weren't related to our religion, because we always folded our arms to pray, and we would put our hands, fold our arms across, our stomachs to pray. And he would do these symbols where he's putting his hands together, like the praying hands symbol. We never did that in our home. So I was suspicious that he was in a Catholic home. Anyway, he lost weight and he was filthy, and my daughter was giving him baths in the sinks at the welfare office. And he would come in with boots that weren't weather appropriate. They were rain boots, and it wasn't rain season, and he was in pajamas and rain boots. And we had sent shoes with him. We sent 3 pairs of shoes. And then one incident where he shows up with rug burns, the social worker is buying my grandson's shoes. And she's also saying that she was present when the rug burns happened. Then, oh, she thought they happened at the school. Oh, she thought they happened with another boy at the foster home. And I tried to verify through the school if the rug burns happened or if he was wearing shorts that day or if he had fallen. The school won't confirm anything because it takes a whole village to raise a child is false ads, because once a state gets your kids, they don't tell you a thing. I have emailed thousands of emails. I mean thousands of emails to thousands of different bureaucrats. The ones on the case, the judges, the Supreme Court judges, the appellate judges, the district attorney's offices. I mean, thousands of emails. And nobody, the schools, the principals, legislators, the President of the United States of America, nobody has called me or sent me any help. The police, the sheriffs in several counties, the state police, no one has responded to me. No one. There is the military. They haven't responded to me. Why are you writing to me? And stop sending me email. Even the Supreme Court says, please stop sending me email. The attorneys on my daughter's case, stop sending me email. Or they just hide the emails. They change their emails. You can't even verify who owns what phone number and who's calling you from what phone number. And then they have several phones each. And then they change phones and they switch phones. And then they change emails. And then when you get something from them and you try to download it, they send you encrypted messages that disappear, that have a shelf life on the emails. So there's no way to verify conversations with this agency, DHS. And no one will verify how my grandson got the rug burns. There's nobody showing me that they looked into the evidence. There's no one talking to me about the timeline of the testimony and why the social worker is, telling 3 different stories and then saying, oh, Nolan doesn't want to get anybody in trouble. You see, and she's coaching him what to say. So she's got 3 stories in her mouth. And she is coaching my grandson to have 3 stories. Because this was all happening in front of my grandson. And then she's like, oh, Nolan doesn't want to get anybody in trouble. And this is the person that's transporting my grandson all alone through Portland in a strip bar ridden facility where there's nobody checking the pickup time and the drop off time. No family member checking the pickup time and the drop off time. And any alone time spent with the social workers. Okay. So these social workers are evil and they're documenting things, and there's no verification of conversation between you and the social workers. And when you try to verify these conversations, they switch social workers on you and they don't respond, and they just tell you I'm not responding anymore. Because I'm told that they won't give me any visits. I was speaking to the transportation officer who's also in charge of the scheduling of the visits. That's what I gathered. And she says, I'm not scheduling any visits with you. Although I requested visits, I have been in touch with social worker after social worker after social worker. Every time they switch social workers, I find out what social worker it is, and they won't even answer my emails. I have bombarded the judge with emails. I've bombarded thousands of people with emails, and I don't get a single response. I'm stonewalled by all the attorneys, and no one will corroborate or verify that cooperation is happening. No one verifies anything, not the sex crimes unit, not the sheriffs, not the state police, not the local police, not the Portland police. Nobody has verified a single thing about the well-being of my grandchildren with me. Okay? We are kept in the dark. We are alienated. We are allowed to worry. We are allowed to suffer. We are allowed to just be in the dark because strangers have more rights to the money the government is spending on putting them with pedophiles.
Includes in house bins. If the children are isolated, perpetrators frequently move traffic children, as we know, but this is to disorientate the children.
To disorient the children. Yes, by April 30th of the same year they were taken, within February, March, April, within 3 months, they had been moved 3 times. And then I find out that my grandson is coming in the into the meetings where my daughter's getting to see only him and not my granddaughter. She's completely isolated. They're put far away from the school, where the school of origin law is that they keep them there for stability. Well, excuse me? They're bouncing them from foster home to foster home and then transporting them to and from school in taxis, separate rides to and from taxis through a strip bar right in Portland. And they will not even let them call home on birthdays or Christmas. They have not even had a face chat. With all this technology available, they could have given me a face chat. I have asked and asked and asked for a tiny visit, for a phone call, for the slightest confirmation that they're okay. Okay? For one single bureaucrat to help me identify and get some comfort that my grandchildren are okay. And oh, in a nation that is so big on mental health, oh, so big on mental health, they don't care a rat's ass. They do not care that I'm worried out of my mind, that I'm going out of my mind in worry, that I email them hundreds of pages of email, that they complain, that they have the governor's advocacy office complaining about my masses of email to them, explaining the laws they're breaking, explaining that my grandchildren are in danger, and all they say is the kids did not disclose. Well, the word disclose means report to someone in charge of the investigation of such things. Well, disclosure, all kinds of technicalities and mumbo jumbo. Why would these social workers be using such legal jargon if they're not attorneys? They cannot give me legal advice. They cannot act as attorneys and use these legal definitions because they're not licensed according to, the rules of the bar. Okay, so I'm told they didn't disclose. Well, they're isolated, they're separated, they're not questioned in my presence, with a guarantee that if something happened to them, that they don't have to go back. Okay, that in itself is duress to say I'm okay, I'm fine, because they could be threatening the mother, they could be threatening, well, they have siblings, they separated them, and they could be trafficking them separately. And my daughter, well, they could be threatening, your mother will die, your brother will die, your sister will die, your grandmother will die. Everybody you love will die. And of course, if somebody comes up and asks them a question, yeah, I was harmed, I was raped. Well, did they question them all together? Did they have, a guarantee that they didn't have to go back? Because it takes months to get kids out of foster care, if when you do get them out, and then there's hearing after hearing after hearing, and you have a hearing, it still takes a few days to get them even after a hearing, and then they come to your house and they find another reason not to leave them in your house. I've seen the qualifications of what they can use to deny you your children, which is not having a fire extinguisher, not having a carbon monoxide detector, not having a first aid kit. Oh, yeah, we're just going to put them back with pedophiles because, oh my gosh, your building code isn't up. Like, we have to qualify as a facility? What? I'm sorry, our building code was just fine before you took them. How do you get to upgrade the standard of our building code and tell us we're not a facility? You're not a licensed facility to foster your own flesh and blood, because the government has a mandate at the federal level that they do not give them to family because you have to be a facility, and strangers by mandate, have to be caring for the kids with fire extinguisher, carbon monoxide detector, and go through all these screening processes. And nature and your DNA doesn't matter anymore. It's the money that matters. Your blood ties mean absolutely zero in these courts.
No real trust in relationships. There's nobody that a lot of these children can speak out to because of frequently moved. Personal possessions are also an indicator. A child who has too little possessions is easily moved. It's a terrible.
My grandson had 3 pairs of shoes when he went in there, a big coat, and then they lost his coat. Okay, so they just take everything away from them, which is a sign that they're moving them and that they're being trafficked. Okay, so the lady that was buying him shoes could have been bribing him. You know, here, I'll buy you some shoes. Be quiet, I'll buy you some shoes. And it was evident that they gave them, they're taking their clothing from them is because they're giving them these tickets to put them in the closet, the donation closet. When my daughter and I sent lots of stuff, I know we went through my whole entire house to make sure they had their things. Okay, so they take things away from them and give them away, so then they have to perform to meet their needs. They have to like be nice or behave, and then they'll buy them some shoes, or they'll, you know, meet their needs, like feed them. I mean, in Florida, I heard that there was a brothel right across from the youth care facility where they were starving the kids in the youth care facility, and they were making them go across the street to turn tricks just to eat. Okay, so yeah, I know this is something that's going on in this world. I've heard of other people saying that that's what's happening to them. So this lady is right on point about the signs of trafficking, and these signs have been clearly in the case of both my grandchildren. I have sent all this evidence and complaints to all the district attorneys, to the attorneys, to the Supreme Court, to the sheriffs, to the police. I have voiced every single one of these points, and they completely ignore me.
Thing to say, but they can just be picked up and dropped with no trace left behind. Also, personal possessions, too many of them, a real indicator for children being groomed.
So they're taking their stuff away and then giving them stuff. So I have asked the judge for an inventory of everything that was bought for my grandchildren. I have asked for this information from the judge. I have asked and sent a list of every question I need answered. And I haven't had a single response. Okay. I have sent it to the social workers. I've sent it to the Supreme Court. I've sent it to the police. I've sent it to the caseworkers. I've sent it to the Capitol. I've sent it everywhere. I mean, nobody will answer a single question that I have.
Restricted freedom. Many people presume that too much freedom is dangerous, but too little freedom is also an indicator.
Okay, my granddaughter had all these accounts. Okay, she would, you know, sign up for these apps, TikTok, you know, Facebook, the music apps, and she had a YouTube account and everything. Okay, my granddaughter knows her email address. It was her login account on my computer, and her Facebook login. It was a login for the apps that we let her have and games that we could communicate through. Like, she knew my handle on Minecraft. She's never tried to contact me through Minecraft. She's never tried to contact me through TikTok or Facebook or anything. Why are they restricting her from contacting me? Because she knows her email address. I told her, you know your email address, and she knew her email address, and I have not received one single email from her. So someone's either blocking her email from coming through to me, and or she's not being allowed. She's been restricted. She knew my phone number when she left, and we set her up her Facebook, and I was the piggyback on her Facebook. She hasn't been on Facebook.
Unusual travel times. A lot of these children, as we know, go to school. This activity is happening outside those times.
Okay, they moved my grandchildren, nailing down school of origin that gives the social worker the power to keep the child in their money bag. Okay, so they use school of origin as the grounds to deny family because they're trying to provide them stability. And they want to keep them in the same school. Instead of keeping them in the same family, they keep them with strangers again, which is because the nobody at the school is your family or blood. But then they move them from foster home to foster home to foster home, and they taxied my grandchildren through Portland, back and forth through Portland, through a strip bar ridden city. Which what? How many strip bars are there in Portland? How many whorehouses are there in Portland? Oh, what is that? You know, those. What's going on in Portland? I'm telling you, they separated them in the taxi cabs too because they had different schedules, and they didn't have an after school program for them for a long time. And we were like, everything I heard from my daughter ever was reported to all the people that were involved in the case. And I never get any confirmations from any of these people. But later on, I just hear they were moved again, and they were moved again, and they were moved again. And that's what they're doing, is they're moved them so far away that the travel time after school was immense. And then they would deny us visits because they kept them in Portland while all the family is down here on this side of town. But they used school of origin to hold them in Portland and bounce them from foster home to foster home there. So every time they moved them, well, they had a chance to put them closer to family, but they didn't. They kept them near the strip bars.
And these children are also, a lot of the time, reluctant to seek help. A lot of their families' lives are in danger because they're threatened, and they also believe that their own life is in danger.
And you know that they could threaten, I'll kill your grandma, I will kill your mother, I will kill your brother, I will kill you. That's really easy to get a child. And I want to see what the investigation tactics are and how my questions were answered and why my questions weren't answered. Because I was asking all these questions on point, okay? Hundreds of questions. I sent lists to the Supreme Court of questions that I wanted answered. I sent lists to the attorneys. I sent a certified restricted delivery questions of lists of things that I wanted answered regarding my grandchildren about their care. And of course, you know, they won't tell me anything because strangers have more rights. Strangers in a town full of strip bars have more rights than family.
So what I urge you is to act on a gut feeling as I am myself.
Gut feeling.
We're a herd species. We're born with an innate sense of knowing.
An innate sense of knowing.
And sometimes all you've got to go on is a gut feeling. But that isn't enough. Yes.
We had way more than a gut feeling. I mean, when they take your children based on an algorithm of risk of harm and then increase the risk of harm to children, you know they're lying. How do you need a gut feeling about that one?
A lot of survivors who might be searching found that they hurt you to act, not react. If you come across a situation and you feel like you need to act, make sure it's not a reaction to what you saw. Because
Act. They can take your kids based on suspicion and hearsay, and then they don't have to prove their case. They don't give you trial by jury. They don't have to prove anything. But when you leverage an allegation against them and have all the points that show that they're more than likely human trafficking kids, when the risk of harm is increased just because they have the kids, that's not grounds to take them back. No, it's grounds to just move them to another place where you're playing a game of Russian roulette with the safety of your children, because you never know who's nice and who's not. So the more they move them, the greater the risk. Every single time they move your kids, they're playing a game of Russian roulette with rape and death at a greater risk of harm.
the potential for a backlash on the child is quite significant. So we always push for action, not a reaction. Take the emotion out of it and make sure that you're there simply for the child. And also, I'd like to draw attention to county lines. For anyone who's not aware of what county lines is, we are very aware of sexual exploitation of children. But many, specifically young men, are also trafficked up and down the country every day, transported drugs and arms. They are also being exploited. For the financial special game of absolute disgusting criminals.
Absolute disgusting criminals. Mm-hmm.